So my uncle is an avid outdoorsman with a bit of hippie wanderlust. He did the Peace Corps twice, once in Kenya and another time in Egypt. He's seen some stuff, some creepy stuff in those countries, including weird rituals and the aftermath of some murders. Anyway, he's an outdoor guy who always was best friends with a Native American fellow and would hunt with him in the traditional bow and arrow style just to be closer to nature. Hunt and gather from the wild and use everything up sort of attitude. He didn't take the modern world for granted. My uncle and his friend hunted deer, mainly in southern Ohio, in an area called Hocking Hills, which touches the Appalachian Mountains. A bit of the area's backstory. There have been years' worth of reports of wild people living in the woods down there, like people who go off the grid kind of deal. Also, talk of cults living in the woods. There's also a consistent rumor that people out in the world practice cannibalism. Rumor got invigorated by the reports of some backwoods person coming into one of the local towns, smashing a bunch of stuff, and later being diagnosed with advanced mad cow disease, but for people. Basically, a misfolded protein starts multiplying in your brain, and it eats away in your neurons, making your brain look like Swiss cheese. Funny thing about getting prion disease, as it's called, is that you can get it by eating the protein of your own species. Cow eating ground up cow in their feed, or human on human cannibalism, particularly brain matter. Of course, it can happen when the same species eat each other, and then eating that infected animal, and human can get it. But yeah, woods, cannibals, disease stories. So my uncle and his buddy are taking advantage of a brilliant full moon and a clear night to go out and set up to hunt some deer in Hocking Hills. They hike way out into the deep woods late at night and set up their perch and hut high up in the trees near a pine grove clearing, so they'll have some good visuals of the ground below. Inevitably, my uncle has to do what nature calls and leaves the perch and hikes out a bit to do his business just to prevent animals getting wind of the human scent. This is now in full moonlight, so my uncle feels pretty confident where he's going and where he came from. Then, a random cloud covers the moon and it's totally dark, and he made the mistake of not having a headlamp with him. So he waits until the cloud moves along, or until his eyes adjust, and then he hears the screaming. Not just screaming, but like laughing screaming, and very, very human sounding. Like the closest thing he said was that it was circling hyenas on the savannah that he remembers in Kenya, but also blood-curdling, like make your veins turn to ice. Just out of absolutely nowhere, and this is in Ohio. So he bolts, runs like a crazy person back to where he thought he came from, ducking under bushes and hiding behind rocks. When the laughter/screaming sound gets closer, again, this is a guy who's seen some pretty messed up stuff overseas, and he's tumbling and fumbling over himself trying to run away. So the moon comes out again, and my uncle finds himself in the pine grove clearing near where his buddy is. Quiet, then more screaming. He's like F cannibals and finds the tree where the perch is at, and bare finger climbs up that damn tree like his life depends on it, fractures a bunch of his nails, and the buddy is still up there in the perch, and my uncle is freaking out. He tells his buddy that the cannibals are here, and that they're totally screwed. His friend just laughs at him. He tells my uncle that the sound he's been hearing, the laughing/screaming, is the sound of deer in heat and getting it on, like a bunch of deer doing it everywhere. That it's super rare to be able to hear. and that they're lucky to experience it. I think I heard that my uncle wanted to punch his friend, but they laugh about it instead and talk about the good spot and that they'll likely get a buck that night with all the activity, although they appreciate just how much that's gonna suck for the buck. All of a sudden, a whole group of deer trot into the clearing. My uncle and his friend get ready to shoot. But then all of a sudden, the deer stop and turn their heads in the same direction and then bolt like a stampede away. My uncle and his buddy are so confused, and then in the clearing come 3 or 4 people. They're carrying something that has the shape and weight of another person. Again, this is in the middle of the woods. They walk right into the moonlight, and it's like a freaking body they're carrying. They look like haggard woods people. They have dark, purple stuff on their upper bodies, and my uncle goes to ask his buddy a question about if they're seeing what they're actually seeing, but before he can say it, his friend shuts him up by covering his mouth. The people walk away not seeing the perch. My uncle says that his friend gets real serious and starts counting his arrows. After about 30 minutes, my uncle's friend tells my uncle that they must not sleep that night and not to make much noise, then starts mumbling a soft native chant. They don't sleep, and no one returns to the clearing, and the sun comes up. Very sunny, clear day. They look around. There's nobody. It's very quiet. They make their way down to the perch, leaving most of their stuff in the perch because they want to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. They get back to the truck parked alongside the road and head immediately to the nearest ranger station to tell them what happened. They both get the breathalyzer because, yeah, the story could have totally been the product of one too many Budweiser lights, but they're stone cold sober. They convince the ranger that something went down. A few rangers then go with them, back to check the clearing out, and for my uncle to get his gear. While my uncle and his friend are packing up the area, the rangers walk into the area, and then all of a sudden, they all get buzzing. My uncle goes to see what's up, and the ranger found a few blood spots that look like a blood trail. They do a spot check of the blood with their gearbox, and determine it's not deer, but rather human blood. My uncle's like, well, forget this, we're gonna leave the ranger in order for them to radio the station. So fast forward later that day when my uncle and his friend are back home relaxing a bit after the ordeal. Both guys are fastidious and clean everything to put away, and then my uncle said that his friend just stopped, dead cold, and then looks at him. He tells my uncle that he began the night with 2 quivers with 6 arrows each. He now only has 9 arrows. There are 3 missing. He for sure counted 12 when he recounted in the middle of the night, and shit went down. In their haste, they left the hunting gear all the way up the perch when they got down in the morning, but it was secure, like everything strapped into quivers and then strapped in the perch. So someone must have been watching them that morning and taken the arrows when they left. My uncle's friend promptly got rid of his bow and arrows after that, saying that he can't have them around anymore due to bad spirits. Even did a ritual with some of his tribe and my uncle, as they touched dark spirits and had to be purified. We later learned that the blood ended up matching some missing persons case. My uncle and his friend were questioned again. They never found any kind of human remains anywhere near where the blood was originally found there. They even brought in dogs from what I heard. Said missing person never became found again either. My uncle was told that a possible homicide can't be proved or considered because it was just him and his friend in the dark one night from far up in some trees. Besides that, there was no evidence found. That's why there wasn't any crime. So, mystery. But my uncle is convinced that what he heard that night running back from when he went down to go to the toilet was probably more than just deers doing their thing. Suffice to say, that was the last time they went into Hocking Hills woods for deer hunting. They were also banned from considering going to Hocking Hills for family day hikes. To this day, I'm super wary of hiking anywhere in the Appalachians.